If God spoke today, would anyone even hear him? Or have our lives become so loud, so rushed, so full of pain, so heavy with mistakes, that we've forgotten what his voice sounds like? Sometimes we look up and whisper, God, are you still there? And in the quiet moments, in the moments we feel most unworthy, most lost, that's when his answer comes, not with thunder, not with fire, but with a gentle voice saying, I never left you. If God spoke today, would anyone even hear him? It's a question that sits quietly in the back of our minds, especially in the moments when life feels heavier than our hearts can carry. These days, the world moves fast, too fast. Our phones are buzzing, our thoughts are racing, and our worries sit on our shoulders like weights that never lift. We wake up tired. We go to bed tired. And somewhere in between, we whisper a prayer we're not even sure anyone hears. Maybe you felt that way. Maybe you still do. There's a kind of silence that doesn't mean nothing is happening. It means our hearts are overwhelmed. And in that overwhelm, it's easy to wonder if God has gone quiet, or if we've just forgotten how to listen. But imagine, for a moment, a different scene. Imagine you're sitting alone in your car. The engine is off, the world outside is rushing by, but inside there's a stillness, one you haven't felt in a long time. Your hands rest on the steering wheel and your eyes are tired, not from the day, but from carrying months, maybe years of unspoken emotions. You take a breath you didn't realize you've been holding, and in that breath, simple, quiet, unnoticed by anyone but you, something soft begins to stir in your chest, a thought, a feeling, a whisper. Not a voice booming from the heavens, not lightning striking the sky, just a gentle impression in your heart that says, I never left you. If God spoke today, that's what his voice would sound like. Not loud, not forceful, not demanding, but gentle, so gentle that you could miss it if you're not paying attention. His voice would come in the sigh you release when you're finally honest with yourself, in the single tear that slips out when you think no one is watching, in the quiet moments when you let your guard down long enough for your soul to breathe. God doesn't shout over the noise of the world. He waits for the silence inside you. And maybe that's the problem. Life has become so loud that silence feels unfamiliar. We've learned to silence our fears, silence our grief, silence our regrets, but we've also silenced the part of us that used to listen for him. But here's the miracle. God hasn't stopped speaking, we just stopped noticing. He speaks in the sunrise that breaks through your curtains, even after the darkest night. He speaks in the memory that resurfaces when you need strength the most. He speaks in the stranger who holds the door for you, in the child who laughs without fear, in the moment you feel warmth in your heart for no reason at all. His voice is everywhere, woven into the fabric of your ordinary day, and yet we often look for him only in the extraordinary. We wait for signs that shake the earth, while ignoring the signs that soften our hearts. If God spoke today, he would speak in the cracks of your heart, where you think you're too broken to hear anything good. He would speak into the shame you've carried too long. He would reach past every mistake you think defines you and remind you of the truth. My child, I know you're tired, I know you're hurting, I know you feel unseen, but I see you, I'm with you, I'm for you. His voice would not blame you. It would not condemn you. It would not remind you of who you were. It would gently remind you of who you still are. Loved, chosen, cherished, never abandoned. If God spoke today, yes, you could hear him, but first you must allow your heart to become quiet again, because God is still speaking. And deep down, you still know his voice. If God spoke today, his voice would sound like mercy, pure, gentle mercy. The kind that doesn't just look at what you've done, but at everything you've been through. The kind of mercy that understands the difference between a bad moment and a bad person. The kind that sees the heart behind the mistake. Imagine for a moment standing in front of a judge. Your hands are shaking, your voice is small, and you feel the weight of your choices pressing down on you like a mountain. You're not just afraid of consequences, you're afraid of being misunderstood. You're afraid that one moment, one decision, one failure has become your entire story. But what if, instead of judgment, the judge looked at you with compassion? What if he asked you about your life, not just your mistakes? What if he listened, truly listened to your struggles, your fears, and the burdens no one else sees? That's what God does. He isn't a judge waiting to punish. He's a father who leans forward, who listens, who understands the pain behind your choices. He sees the tears you kept hidden, the nights you couldn't sleep, the battles you fought quietly inside yourself. If God spoke today, he might say, I know why you fell, and I know how hard you're trying to rise again. God's mercy doesn't look at your story from one angle. It sees the whole picture. Every wound, every disappointment, every moment that shaped you. He knows the burden you carried that nobody else noticed. He knows the moment your heart began to break. He knows every time you wanted to give up but didn't, and because he knows all of that, he doesn't judge you the way people judge you. People see actions. God sees intention. People see failure. God sees effort. People see the surface. God sees the hidden battle beneath. Judge Frank Caprio often says, everyone has a story. God says the same. He sees the story behind every stumble, and he responds not with anger, but with tenderness. Think about the times you were overwhelmed, the moments you reacted out of fear, out of exhaustion, out of desperation. Maybe you snapped when you shouldn't have. Maybe you made a choice you regret every single day. Maybe life put you in a corner and you did what you thought would keep you going. God doesn't hold those moments against you. He sees your humanity. He sees your heart. And where others might point fingers, God extends his hand. If God spoke today, he wouldn't say, explain yourself. He would say, come here, let me help you. Because his mercy isn't about erasing consequences. It's about lifting shame. It's about reminding you that you are more than your mistakes. It's about assuring you that no wrong turn is final, no wound is too deep, no sin is too dark for his light to enter. God's mercy is the kind that gives you a chance to breathe again. It's the kind that says, you are not beyond redemption. You are not beyond healing. You are not beyond hope. Imagine God looking at your life the way a loving judge looks at a struggling person in his courtroom, not with suspicion, but with empathy. He sees your effort. He sees your heart. And he sees the goodness still inside you, even if you don't see it yourself. If God spoke today, his voice would not bring fear. It would bring relief. It would bring healing. It would bring freedom. He would whisper, my mercy isn't earned. It's given, and I give it to you, fully, lovingly, endlessly. That is the judge who sees the heart. That is the God who sees you. If God spoke today, he wouldn't wait for you to be perfect. He wouldn't wait for you to have your life neatly organized or your heart fully healed. He would speak right into the mess, right into the parts of you that feel too fragile to touch, because that's where we need him the most. We don't often hear God in the moments when everything is going well. We hear him in the moments when life feels upside down, when the world feels too loud, and when our hearts feel like they're carrying more than they were ever built to hold. Maybe you've been there. Maybe you're there right now. The nights when you lie awake staring at the ceiling, your mind replaying every mistake you ever made. The mornings when you wake up already exhausted, wondering how you're supposed to keep going. The days when you smile at people, but inside you feel like you're barely holding yourself together. Those are the moments when God comes closest. Not with lightning, not with a dramatic sign from the sky, not with a booming voice that makes the world stop. He comes through the small things. The things we often brush off as just coincidence. Maybe it was the nurse who held your hand when you were scared, her touch warm, steady, reminding you that you weren't alone. She didn't know what you were facing inside. She didn't know the fear sitting in your chest, but God did, and he used her to speak comfort when you couldn't find any on your own. Maybe it was the friend who texted you out of nowhere just to check on you, on a day when you needed someone but didn't have the strength to ask. You might have thought it was random. It wasn't. God was reminding you that he sees you even when you feel invisible. Maybe it was the stranger who smiled at you in the grocery store, the kind of smile that felt genuine, warm, human, the kind of smile that said, I see you, without a single word spoken. And for just a moment you felt lighter, even if you didn't know why. God speaks in the small cracks of your day, in the little moments that seem unimportant, in the gentle reminders that your story isn't over. Sometimes we look for God only in the extraordinary, and we miss him in the ordinary miracles. A quiet sunrise after a night of tears, a laugh you didn't expect to have, a memory that brings comfort when you need it most, a moment of strength that comes from nowhere, except it didn't come from nowhere at all. If God spoke today, he would speak in the places where your heart has been broken, because broken places are where his light gets in the easiest. He would speak through the hug that felt like home, through the forgiveness you didn't think you deserved, through the moment you finally allow yourself to breathe again. And sometimes he speaks in silence, the kind of silence that holds you instead of hurting you, the kind of silence that wraps around you like a blanket and says, rest, I'm here. You may not hear actual words, you may not see a sign painted in the sky, but in every moment you didn't fall apart. In every moment you were comforted unexpectedly. In every moment you found a reason, any reason to keep going. God was speaking. He was whispering, I know your pain, I know your fear, and I am walking through this with you. The world tells you that you're alone, but God tells you that you're loved, deeply, endlessly, beyond understanding. If God spoke today, He would speak exactly where your heart aches the most, so you could know without a doubt that even in your broken moments, He has never stopped holding you. If God spoke today, one of the first things He would tell you softly, lovingly, is something you may have a hard time believing. I forgive you, not halfway, not partially, not after you prove yourself worthy completely. We live in a world where people remember every mistake, where your worst moment can follow you for years, where one wrong choice can overshadow 1,000 right ones. God isn't like that. He doesn't drag your past into your future. He doesn't replay your failures like a film reel. He doesn't hold grudges or keep score. When God forgives, He clears the slate, not because you earned it, but because His love is greater than your wrongdoing. Think about the moments you wish you could erase, those choices made in panic and pain and immaturity and weakness, the words you said when you were hurting, the decisions you regret with every beat of your heart, the opportunities you missed, the people you wounded, the version of yourself you're ashamed to remember. You see all of that and think, how could God ever forgive me? But God sees something completely different. He sees your struggle. He sees the pressure you are under. He sees the wounds that shaped your decisions. He sees the storms you survived that no one else knew about. And most of all, He sees the goodness in you that never really left. God isn't interested in defining you by your mistakes. He's interested in redeeming them. If God spoke today, He might say, I don't love you less because you fell. I love you enough to help you rise. That is who He is, the God of second chances and third chances and fourth chances, and as many chances as it takes for you to learn, heal, and grow. God doesn't look at you and see failure. He sees someone who is still becoming. He would speak life into the parts of you that feel dead, and He would whisper with unwavering certainty, your story isn't over. Your past is not your prison. This is your new beginning. That is the God of second chances, and He offers one to you, right here, right now, with love that has never once let you go. If God spoke today, would anyone hear? It's a question that lingers in the quiet parts of our minds, especially when life feels overwhelming. But maybe the deeper truth is this: God is speaking. He has always been speaking. The real question is whether our hearts have slowed down enough to notice His presence. We often expect God's voice to arrive with drama, lightning, miracles, unmistakable signs. But God rarely shouts. More often He whispers, and His whispers weave themselves into the fabric of our everyday lives. Picture yourself early in the morning. The world is still half asleep, the sky tinted with the softest shades of blue and gold. You sit in the quiet, maybe with a cup of coffee warming your hands. For a moment, nothing demands your attention. Nothing pulls you, nothing pressures you. And in that soft silence, you feel something, a calm, a sense of safety, a warmth that you can't quite explain. That's Him. God is in the stillness that settles your racing thoughts. God is in the breath that reminds you're still alive. God is in the peace that arrives without warning, like a hand on your shoulder saying, you're going to be okay. Sometimes His voice feels like clarity. Sometimes it feels like comfort. Sometimes it feels like hope rising quietly inside you when you thought hope was gone forever. He speaks through the moment you finally allow yourself to cry after holding everything in for too long. He speaks through the forgiveness you extend even when it hurts. He speaks through the strength you find on the days you almost give up but somehow don't. God's voice is not always a voice. Sometimes it's a feeling, sometimes it's a nudge. Sometimes it's the sudden courage to take one more step even when you're tired. If God spoke today, He would reassure you, gently, tenderly, that everything you've endured has not gone unnoticed. Every tear, every prayer whispered through trembling lips, every sleepless night, every moment you felt alone in a crowded world, He saw all of it. And even when you felt abandoned, He was closer than your own heartbeat, closer than your breath, closer than every fear you tried to hide. If God spoke today, He might say, I know you, I know your heart, I know your pain, and I am not done with your story. Those words, if you let them, carry healing. Because the truth is, God doesn't leave anyone behind. Not the broken, not the weary, not the ashamed, not the ones who think they've failed too many times. God is not a God of abandonment. He is a God of pursuit. He chases after your heart with patience that never runs out. He waits gently for you to come home to Him. He stands beside you even when you're convinced you don't deserve His love. If you paused your busy life for just a moment, if you let the noise settle, if you allowed the quiet to return, You might hear him more clearly than you ever expected because he is still speaking. You hear him in the way the sunlight breaks through after days of rain. You hear him in the unexpected laughter that bubbles up on a hard day. You hear him in the feeling of being cared for when someone shows you kindness. You hear him in the inner voice that whispers, "You are not alone." God's presence is subtle but powerful, soft but strong, quiet but never absent, and so much of his message is simple. I'm here. If God spoke today, he would remind you that nothing you face is bigger than his love. He would remind you that your heartbreak is not the end of your story. He would remind you that your future is filled with possibilities you haven't even imagined yet. He would ask you to trust him, not because life is easy, but because he is faithful. And as this message comes to a close, take a moment. Just one, take a slow breath. Let your shoulders relax. Let your heart soften. Put your hand over your chest and feel your heartbeat, steady, persistent, live. That heartbeat is proof of something miraculous. God is not done with you. He is still sustaining you, still guiding you, still loving you with a love that never breaks, never fades, never gives up. If God spoke today, you could hear him. You can hear him. You have heard him. In every moment you survived, in every moment you felt hope rise again, in every moment you sensed a peace that didn't come from the world. His voice is not far, it's right here, inside you, around you, holding you. And if you listen, truly listen, you'll hear him whisper, I'm here, I love you, and I'm walking every step with you. That is the peaceful truth. That is the hope you can rest in. That is the God who never abandons you before you go. Take this moment to breathe, to slow down, to let the noise of the world fade, just for a little while. Because if there's one message you carry with you after all this, let it be this. God is still speaking, you are still loved, and your story is still unfolding. Life may have wounded you, it may have exhausted you, it may have taken you down paths you never meant to walk, but none of that disqualifies you from God's love. None of it makes you unworthy. None of it pushes you beyond his reach. If anything, your broken places are where his mercy shines the brightest. So as you step into tomorrow, whatever it may hold, remember, you don't walk alone. You never have. You never will. God is with you in the quiet moments, in the heavy moments, and in the hopeful moments yet to come. He is guiding you gently, tenderly, with a love that has never once failed you. And when life feels overwhelming, when your heart feels tired, when you're not sure what to do or where to turn, just pause, listen. In the silence, in the stillness, in the soft spaces of your soul, you will hear him whispering, I'm here, I love you, and I'm not finished with you yet. May that truth wrap around you like peace. May it strengthen you when you feel weak. May it remind you that no matter what you face, there is always hope, because there is always God. And if God spoke today, he would say, take heart, my child, your best days are still ahead of you.